Hello and welcome to Savepoints, cosmic lessons I've learned about life and myself by playing video games. My name is GoldVision and I'd like to welcome grinders, scissors, and knives of all kinds. As I learned a lesson in a video game called Path of Exile recently, and I think we can all agree, you and me, that it's important to stay sharp. Now, you know me, my goal in this and every game is to not intentionally attack another player, to find creative and joyful experiences while working with others to enhance and improve whatever world I've found myself within. Then I establish auxiliary principles, which become harder and harder to maintain within most contemporary games, to avoid attacking anything human, and then avoid hurting anything perceived as living, then not inflicting any pain, and finally, to attempt to focus on not destroying anything or barrels or inventory items or colors or lights or anything for the sake of my own selfish gain. And then double, finally trying not to die, I guess. And I think that doing this exercise and taking these precautions, I reduce the risk of actually warring with another person or destroying something important. I find a lot of peace and joy from this style of gameplay, and although I do expect other players to respect my right to have fun without hurting anyone, I don't expect anyone else to behave this way. My friends do not behave this way. In fact, they more than compensate for my lack of destruction in their own ways, and I pass no judgments for it. Everyone must walk their own path, and I wouldn't be able to walk mine if I felt I was in any way restricting theirs or the lightning bolts they carry with them. I'm so dedicated to this philosophical path that I was unwilling to attack the crabo monsters or even apparent vetted zombies, or even the zombie boss Hillock in the tutorial part of the game, where an area friend is allowed to visit or help me. I prefer instead to casually amble, my precious eyes mind absorbing and appreciating the beauty of the game's world, avoiding those who seek my destruction for no reason that I can understand. I spent a very long time standing in this strange rectangled off part of the ocean, appreciating the waves and the overcast skies, but as I did that I could hear my friends speak of another world, one filled with adventure and sunlight, and I wanted to see them again and experience it. This was a problem, however, because as much as I wanted to walk past Hillock, meet up with my friends, and figure out whatever they were talking about, a semi-visible physical red barrier separated me from the entire rest of the game world and story and my friends. Hillock, according to that story, was already dead and zombified and had swords in his heart and was already dead and wouldn't even attack the crabo monsters when they hit him with rocks they were trying to hit me with, and was, by all definitions, already dead. But who was I to decide that he should be obliterated, his agency eliminated, his personness removed from the story for my own selfish gain? And who were the game's designers to insist that defeating this one random character was necessary to play the rest of their game? As if to say complacency and destruction one time is the only way they could feel comfortable permitting players to enjoy their time within the living canvas they had painted here. And even if you'd be willing to suggest that it's not Hillock himself, but a greater concept of supernatural evil demanding a contest of skill and violence, the thought of imposing my will into the conflict of clearly dangerous, omnipotent forces was the precise spiritual behavior I was trying to avoid. So instead I made Jen do it.
And I'll do whatever I have to do.
Yeah, but is there a person that you think would best represent
You.
humanity?
I'd say this girl. She's got slim shady hair.
Okay. I actually debated for a week and then finally asked if she would, and when she agreed I directed her about in the game world, hoping to minimize her overall destruction, which was a little harder than I anticipated.
And then what do I do when I see him?
Yeah, you right click, and then left click to get away from him.
I'm not getting him, right?
No, you got him a couple times, but you gotta keep moving away, because he's gonna keep hitting you. I should have suggested she work her way up to the fight of the mini-boss, but instead we tried learning combat, kiting, using potions, and the respawn process all at once. It's not easy. You got him to half health. He's halfway gone. And as she patiently fired arrows into the patently undead monster Hillock, I didn't make mention of her seemingly sub-zero health bar because it seemed less important to look at stats or harp about numbers when we were in the middle of a war. It was much more important to focus on every single arrow and with them to stay sharp.
How do I know how close I am to him being
There's
dead?
a health bar. It's pretty low.
I got him? Wow.
And that's actually the hardest way to it. That's all I
Shabby
needed
jerkin.
That's all I needed your help with.
That's not so shabby jerkin.
I really appreciate what you did just now. I wasn't happy about this mandatory violence, and I did my civic duty of cleaning up the now littered beach right before I sent a formal letter of complaint to express my lone voice in the matter. Then I was permitted passage through the unfair magical red wall to play online with the other players, and violence was no longer necessary. Of course, the gameplay that followed wasn't completely unfamiliar, even for a title I had less than an hour invested into. I was immediately besieged by hurricane adventuring, the unique language of the game something my friends were all well versed in, and I rapidly tried learning from their vast experience. I would try to follow the story, but while trying to rush through the quest prompts and check out speech bubbles that literally prevented eye contact, I'm sure I missed a whole bunch.
There's a story to it. I think there's a sickness or something.
Relatable. And my friends with 1 or 2 bits of experience talked me through my adventure as they flowed like some sort of lightning swordnado through the lands they were familiar with and were new to me. It just says explore the mud flats. Oh, there's a strange wall. They impatiently waited for me to painfully finally resolve to crack open a few unfertilized quest eggs.
Grab that eggs, by the way. Grab that egg.
Oh, that nest egg?
Yeah, and,
I just
and maybe drop something on the
Okay,
ground.
well, or to spend way too long trying to decide which items I would not pick up, and subsequently I would be passively responsible for their despawn out of the server's memory and destroyed through my lack of inventory space to the lament of literally nobody but me. These harsh debates in darkened dungeons would eventually open up to the occasional respite, a beautiful coastline or sunny field scattered with only a few skeleton corpses. This is nice. This part right here is really nice.
It gives you an option? It shouldn't give you an option anymore, right?
It's really scenic.
And this was enough to contrast the rather desolate insta-graveyards I was becoming accustomed to. I'd been instructed early on how to cessate attacking, because in Path of Exile, simply by left-clicking a mouse, I was sending my character into a murderous frenzy.
You can change it to move only so you don't accidentally attack.
Oh, left-click?
Yeah, in the bottom right, where your attack thing is on your left click, if you click on it, you can pick the one that's 2 feet.
Oh,
I just
I like
moved you.
that.
Yeah,
That was faster than figuring it out, for sure. By changing this square from click to attack to click to move was a clear nod to my goals, that perhaps not every decision to walk somewhere need include a contingency for death. My character was under a lot of duress all the time, without the proper leveling capabilities and competing in realms where I would refuse to defend myself from the mobs of bloodthirsty monsters. My life was constantly at risk. The in-game flasks that refilled health only filled themselves when monsters were killed, and so I was dependent on my friends to be nearby virtually the whole time. Venturing alone was dangerous, and just because I had great aspirations did not mean I was any less responsible for the lives of the story I was participating in, and I would have to carefully navigate catacombing prisons and caverns. What is that? This isn't... I'm sorry, what is this this crazy... Eventually, through this passive grind I found myself lost within, I had found a groove as well, of wandering from waypoint to waypoint and trading in quest rewards to be sold for currencies I wasn't sure how to use, or never too far from my friends, the hurricane seemed to have taken me on as part of itself. The forces of chaos had enveloped me in such a way that seemed indifferent to my chosen purpose, only happy that I was here. This is very... this has got to be unsettling to your character, as it is me. And as I hastily wandered rapidly through the piles of weapons and bodies I barely had time to read about, I found myself stepping into and past a pile of monsters who had no way about them, a uniqueness to my journey. Mind focused on the next, picking up litter and clicking to move forward, I somehow lost the moment, and when I least expected it, disaster struck. I'd failed to note that at some point when clicking through inventory items between Roman numeral 1 and 2 of my primary weapons, whatever that means, I had passively reactivated click to move and also kill any monster that gets in your way. And although I had no weapon equipped, the character Jen had whimsically chosen gleefully punched a halfway dead snake monster. My surprise and confusion weren't enough to redirect. Pressing escape or whatever other keys I could find did not stop my character's charge for a second punch, defeating the monster and sending it to wherever chaos deals with such things.
To use that blood altar, but at the beginning I think you only collect 4 beasts.
The aspiration of non-destruction is to find these issues, these events, and explore their value, and ideally use the resulting wisdom to continue to find creative solutions to difficult problems, and to not attack other players, which, with tricky user interface settings, could be much harder than I'd hope. It was a strong reminder that aspirations alone do not carry the torch, that at any moment we could slip in error in irrevocable ways. My principles were one thing, but carrying them out much more, a difficult endeavor. I would have to remain vigilant about the game mechanics, lest I attacked another player or human being. As much as I enjoyed the museum-like trance, I appreciated the world I was stepping through. I would have to make sure I didn't step too close to any of the artwork. And as we continue to move down our shared fated path that I refuse to give up or abandon, I believe it's much more important to stick with our friends, remember to click to move and stay sharp. My name is GoldVision, I use the tricorn hat, the goat hide buckler of thick skin, and I hope you enjoyed this save point.